Let me begin by saying I'm not normal. My name's Dennis Grice. I'm the technology coach. Is she filming me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get like up real close so we can see, like right there. I can just say hi, just like that. Now she's gonna step in and delete that part. But no, I'm a technology coach at Concordia Shanghai, and one of my passions is storytelling. And the storytelling sort of starts with this shirt. My grandfather lived to be 102 years old. And I spent a lot of time talking to him, and he was just sharp right up until the end. Just got so many different stories from him and his life. I mean, he saw a zeppelin fly. He actually saw the spruce goose in flight because he's working at a machine shop down in Long Beach at Century Metalcraft. And just all different stories of him in the Navy. And went through a few years ago, scanning all these family photos. This is a family photo from New Year's Eve in Chicago, and this is his father tending bar. And I just have, and I just kind of wear this because this is his shirt, one of his shirts. I just wear it, for storytelling, just to kind of honor him. And he was always saying, you're going to get out, you're going to see the world, and here I am at Concordia International School and teaching in China, now I'm in Vietnam, making my own stories, and he just encouraged me to do that. And I think what's storytelling is, hi!
Hello!
How you doing?
I'm
Great.
good.
I'm Dennis and I'm not normal.
That's good.
I hope you can accept
You're in the right
that.
spot.
Yeah, we're here for storytelling, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. If you're here for something else, then stick around anyway. This will be more fun. But we know people. We get to know people by knowing their stories. And the more stories I know about you, the more I know you, the more intimate the relationship becomes. There are probably some stories that you don't want me to share publicly, if we know each other well enough. But stories, I think, are an important way for learning. It's how we remember things. It's how kids learn. And let's move forward. All the resources, everything I'm not going to have time to get to, is at bit.ly/ALEA story. More than you will ever have time, more than I will have time to go through in this brief time that we have together. So, and I'll put this up again at the end so you can get to it. Resources, videos, whatnot. Like, this is a really good video.
I really love a good story.
But you'll have to go to the resources to see it because I don't think I'm going to have time.
Okay.
But essentially what I just kind of introduced to you about the idea of telling stories, learning through stories, and teaching through stories is what that is about. It's sort of like a little digital trailer. And the term digital storytelling is not one that I'm a fan of, because I think it should be storytelling with digital tools, because the story comes first. Stories have been around forever. And then the digital tools are what you use to share those stories. And digital tools are going to change. Storytelling is, it's been around for a long time. So I say the story comes first. It can be a short story, historical. There's a lot of great stories in history. Documentary stories, persuasive stories, myth, fables, folk tales, personal narratives. We can even take science experiments and turn them into stories. If you've ever seen Mythbusters,
Right.
they take an experiment and turn it into a story. They create that story arc. Here's a mystery. Here's what we're going to go through to solve it. The climax is it verified or confirmed or busted?
Busted.
And it's the classic story arc. And it's a great way to share information for kids to show what you know. But essentially all you really need for a story is a campfire and an audience. And that's a powerful story. Stories become even more powerful if we can share them much wider to a global audience. And stories always start with an idea. And this is probably going to be distracting, so I'm going to take this off for a little bit. It may come back. So to start with an idea. And for example, maybe I have an idea to do a story about a polar bear. Now, to begin my story, I need to give this polar bear a problem. That's where you have conflict. All stories have conflict. So what is this polar bear's problem? He's probably hungry.
Yeah.
So now we've got our character, our setting, our problem, and then the story is, what's his plan? How is he going to solve that problem? I have an idea. Okay? Sorry, pal. And another idea might be let's kind of do a brown bear type,
Oh, yeah.
you know. And for kids, if you're kind of going to encourage them to start telling a story, pick some sort of a genre, something like a pattern or something they can say, okay, tell this in the form of a soap opera, or tell this in the form of an Eric Carle book, or tell it in the form of a Dr. Seuss. You know, give them something to kind of like a framework for building it. You know, kids have got a lot of visual information in their head, and they can put that all together. So once you've got that idea, you've got the problem, you need to write your story, and you write your narrative out, okay? And you I usually come up with a narrative that I would think, okay, if I'm gonna read this through, I'll get my narrative down the way I want it to. And then you take that narrative, you split it into chunks, and you divide it up into a storyboard, and you start looking for visuals to go with that. Because stories become powerful when you add the visual imagery. Any of you ever hear Dr. John Medina brain rules? He talks about one of his brain rules is vision trumps all other senses. In my brain, if I'm reading words, I have to take those words, decode it to make a picture in my head. If I get a visual, boom, that image is just, it's kind of like a direct feed into the brain. So if you've got visuals that just make your stories much more powerful. So then I need to come up with visuals for each section of this. And this is where things can get interesting. This is where we start implementing some digital tools. And it can be as simple, it doesn't even have to be a digital tool. But where do we get our images?
Google.
Not from Google,
No.
okay? If a kid ever puts Google as a source for an image, they're wrong, because Google is a search, not a source. And
Okay.
the images that they pull off of Google are coming from somewhere else. If you've ever done a Google image search, you can say view page source or view image source. It'll take you to the web page where that image came from. And that's probably where you'll find it's a copyrighted image, you probably shouldn't be using it. You can even, in the Google search, you can pare it down so it's doing only show me images that are licensed for reuse. And they're gonna say, well, I don't like any of those. They're not the cool images that I want. Yes?
So I always just say free pictures of something.
Of something.
Is there a different way to ask that? Because sometimes they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
And some people are very vigilant on their stuff. And if you post anything online and you're not sure that that's coming from a free source and you didn't take it yourself, you want to be really careful. And I'll actually jump into Google, and I'll show you how a Google image search works. Polar bear. And right here I'm going to search for images. So I've got all these cute images, but right under here is more, actually search tools, usage rights, labeled for non-commercial reuse with modification, or just labeled for non-commercial reuse. So now I've got some of these, but still, this is not my source. You
Right.
know,
Click on
I'll go to this image and I'll say visit page, and I can see it comes from Wikipedia. So that's going to be your
It's a
image
huge
source.
opportunity to teach digital citizenship
Exactly.
and all that kind of thing. So,
Exactly, huge opportunity.
yeah.
And in the resource link that you all wrote down, I've got some other sources for images that I like to go to first. Obviously, if I've got my own pictures, I'll use those. But let me jump back here. Play. But some other sources for images you might want to consider. Photos for class, I've got a link for it in the documents. Really handy tool. It does a Creative Commons Flickr search. And it does a safe Flickr search for schools. Plus, when you download the image, the citation is at the bottom of the image.
Okay.
So check that one out. Pics for Learning, if you've ever used any of the Tech for Learning stuff, this is their own free site of Pics for Schools. National Park Service has a lot of free images. NASA, Library of Congress on Flickr. If you've never checked that out, I actually pulled some images from there for this presentation. Great resource for images. They're all public domain.
Wow.
And some fantastic historical images too. And actually, you know what? I'm going to jump to that one because I think that's worth taking a look at a little bit closer. Let's see. Actually, I'll show you what the resource page looks like. Bit.ly bit.ly/ALEA story. This is where that link will take you, or at least it should. Anytime. There we go. So these are all the resources for today, but images down here. So here's even the Department of Agriculture has some free images you can use. Government stuff is great to steal from because they don't really care.
First round.
Yeah. So here's photos of Library of Congress. And so here's just some of these high quality images that are in here. Close that. But if I want to do a search, you don't want to just type up here. One of the things Flickr changed, if you're going to be working with that, this little magnifying glass down here will search just the Library of Congress photos. It adds that to that top bar. So if I'm looking for pictures of
Albert Einstein.
yeah, there might be some Einstein ones in there. I try not to do, is it EIN or IEN?
EIN.
EIN.
EIN. It's a German word, you know.
Was it Stein or Steen?
Stein.
Stone, or Stone, okay. And we'll do a search. Let's see if that comes up. There might not be any in there, just, okay, we found one here, and he might be in there somewhere. Possibly. But you're not gonna, it's tough to list for names. I always like to search for generic terms.
Like,
Science,
like
you know.
stained glass? Stained glass or something.
Yeah, let me go back here and just do I want to make sure that we're searching for Library of Congress. Remember that magnifying glass? Who said stained glass?
I did.
All right, let's try it. See what we get. There you go. All right. They may not be all completely related, but you'll get some interesting shots. Plus, sometimes it's just fun to look at. They even have groups and collections. Actually, that's not what I wanted to go. Their albums, they kind of break things down into categories. So you've got news in the 1910s, the 30s and 40s in color. Just some, fantastic images. They add more and they pull some out. Here's some, some of the classic images that you might see. But these are all, if you find one that you want in one of these collections, like here's that classic Dust Bowl picture. Right down here you've got the arrow, and you pick which size. Always get the largest size, unless it's like thousands by thousands, because it gives you the opportunity to zoom in. Okay, now I just downloaded that image. Now I always tell the kids, all right, make sure, grab that URL, put that in your research, put that in your links, put that in your bibliography. If you did not take this picture, make sure you give credit where it came from. So that's just one of the many places you can go to find images for your stories. Let's get back to presentation mode. Okay, but another source I like to use is, here's Storytelling Tactic. Remember I talked about large? Okay. Kids have a tendency to save the thumbnail. Looks good when it's small, blow it up, it looks really ugly. Why is my image all blurry? Because you saved the thumbnail, you didn't save the big image. Get that large image so you have the option to zoom in. And if you're using some different video tools, you might want that cool zoom in, or there might be that one part of the image you want to use. I love when kids draw their own images. And there's a great way you can tell stories, just have primary grades. They did whale stories, and they just have 5 pictures that they drew. Take photos of those images, add their voice, and you've got a fantastic story that can be shared. Plus, if it's just their voice and it's their own drawings, it's not their face, you don't put a name on it, post it publicly on YouTube, share it out there. You're not going to steal their identity from their drawings and their voice. Sound resources. Kids love to use their favorite music. If you're going to post it online, yeah, probably not. If you're trying to put something on YouTube and you've got copyrighted music, YouTube will even warn you right away. This is copyrighted stuff, don't use it. One of my favorite resources for music is incompetech.com. I've got a link in the resources. Royalty-free music. They have soundtrack collections that are great for student video projects and film projects. All this guy asks is that you cite them in your sources, which we want our kids to do anyway. Right? Sound effects. You've got free sound Bible. If you need sound effects, even in iMovie and iLife, they've got some sound effects built in. But if none of these work for you, we all have that kid in our class, right? Here is that chance for that kid to shine and be a star, that kid that's always making those sounds. Just hire him. You know, I need an explosion, Bobby, okay. You know, it's fun. He gets to be the star for the day, and he doesn't get in trouble for it. Love it, it's a win. There's even free stock video footage. You wouldn't think so, but on the resources I've got a link, Vimeo has some free stock footage that you can use for background. A National Park Service has free B-roll downloads of stuff from the Grand Canyon you can download and use, you know, with animals and things. This place has animated backgrounds. If you're doing like a news show, you can download some free animated backgrounds for your stuff as well. I've got links to all those on the resource page. Cite your resources, as I said. And if you've ever worked with students and you have an opportunity to well, maybe you've seen this happen. You're working on a project and the kid spends the entire 45 minutes looking for that one picture. The idea of digital kits becomes really appealing. I've created some, you know, like maybe I've got a kit on Abraham Lincoln, I've got a kit of travel pictures, I've got a kit of animal pictures. Pick from this folder and tell your story with just the pictures in this folder. It saves them the time of searching for stuff. It forces them to kind of work within the constraints to get creative, because creativity loves constraints. And you save that time of having to look online for a whole bunch of images. Plus, I know I can make sure if I create that kit, I know those images are safe. I've got links to some of my digital kits on the resource page as well. Question?
I was gonna say as well with that, for me, that was always a rainy day. If the internet goes down, you got it offline. You can use it if you're.
Mine are stored on box.com.
Yeah,
so,
if you've got them stashed
yeah,
somewhere,
if you've got them on
share
your
them.
computers, but yeah. But once again, first choice, have them draw their own pictures and make their own images. Now that you've got all these resources put together, you've got your pictures, you've got your images, drawings, it's time to select a tool for putting this together. Remember, I kind of saved the tool for last. It's story comes first, get your resources. Now it's time to pick a tool. You might have a tool in mind. If you're going to be doing video, you're going to be collecting video. If you're going to be making slideshows, I think if you're just starting off, images and sounds is really an easy way to go. And you can make something really powerful that looks fairly professional. If you've ever seen any of Ken Burns' work, those are all done with still images. They even named a transition after that. The Ken Burns effect. A lot of storytelling tools out there. One of my favorites, I call it PowerPoint circa 1970s. You know, get paper and you draw your story on paper. Get a camera, and actually a really cool way to do this. If you've got a cardboard box, and I wanted to grab one, I don't even see one in here. Maybe one of these bins. Here, I'm just going to dump these out. But say, for example, this was a cardboard box. I'll put that back.
Yeah.
And you just cut a hole in the top. You sit your iPhone on the top of it so the camera's over the top. You put your paper down underneath, cut some holes in the side so light's coming in, and then I can hit record, and I can be pointing to the pictures. You know, okay, move the next page. Now I can talk about my next slide. Move the next page. I'm right here, the microphone's picking me up really well. I can point out what I want to do. It works actually pretty cool. And once again, you're using the kids' own drawings and their own images to tell and teach. I say, teach me a lesson doing that. And the milk crates actually work really well too because they already have the holes in them. But you can use that paper slide technique, and then you just move the paper out as you're going. Link to a tutorial video on how to do this as well. If you're on an iPad, how many iPad people do we have here? Okay. One of my favorites is Book Creator. If you haven't paid the $4.99 for Book Creator, do it. It's worth it. You can use the free version. It lets you create one story. Then you have to delete it and do another one. But what it does is it lets you, let me see if I've got the link. What am I doing on time? Oh, good rolling. All right, so. Sources there. Oops, that's not it. That's from Dave's presentation. Wasn't that awesome yesterday? Yeah.
Brings it all
There we
back.
go.
You tried to escape it already?
All right, storytelling tools, here we go. iPad. book creator tutorials. I have some, we use this with third graders, but I'll just kind of show you this to kind of give an idea of how it works.
Hey kids, would you like to create a book? Let's use Book Creator. Tap on the Book Creator app and let's get started. To start a new book, click plus and select New Book. For this book, we're going to use Portrait mode. When it opens, it's time to add a title. Click plus and click Add Text. Let's type the text for our title. This book is going to be The Adventures of Lego Man. When we're done, tap Done. There's our title. We can change the title by clicking on the little I at the top. We can center our text or even change the font or size. You can drag the box wherever you want on the page, and when we're ready for our next page, we click the arrow. Here's our next page. Let's add a picture. Click plus, go to Photos, and go to your camera roll. I've got a great photo of Lego Man. There he is. The photo's kind of big. You can use those blue dots on the corner to shrink the photo down. Use your finger to drag it around on the page. Get it where you want. Now let's add some text. Click Add Text. One day, Lego Man was standing out on the diving board when he realized there was no water in the pool.
Remember, start with the problem, character, problem. How are we going to solve this problem?
We want. We can use the I to change the size of the text. Whoa, little.
Okay. This is actually part 1 of 3 that kind of goes through the process of Book Creator. Now it can make an actual book, but what's cool is you can actually add sound to this. And it creates an EPUB that'll open in iBooks, that'll open in any e-publication, and you'll have an audiobook. You'll hear the kid's voice reading it, because you can add the sound to it as well. So you can export it as an EPUB. If you don't want the sound, you can export it as a PDF for printing, but you know,
No,
no,
we don't
yeah,
do
you don't
that.
need
No.
to do that.
That's why we got this.
Exactly, that's why. And I've tried to explain to teachers, it's really hard to print sound. It just doesn't work. It just sounds like paper. I always kind of let that sink in for just a little bit. So there's 3 different tutorials on that. That's one of my favorite tools on the iPad. It's also available on Android. And if you're going to be working in Chromebooks and you get one of those new Chromebooks that'll do the Android apps, this will be a great one to add to your collection as well. So, but you've got the story there. And one more thing I add when I'm working with usually around 3rd or 4th graders, I have certain rules for storytelling. And it's no death and stay out of the bathroom. And that usually eliminates about 75% of what any 4th grade boy wants to put in their story. But and then you hear them like, okay, what if they just get really badly hurt? Is that okay? It's like, yeah, okay, with no blood. It's like, oh, you just want to make it great. It's working with the boys. It's like, okay, it forces them to be creative. Girls, I don't usually have a problem with that. It's always 2 friends want to play, and then one doesn't like the other friend. And this one doesn't.
Great story, Nicole.
Starts with a problem. Hey, let's use their little stick figures to work out some of that teen drama they're going to be dealing with later, right? Not a bad plan. Let's talk it over.
The Book Creator, is that just one, you said one book one time, and then you got to delete it out and then make another
Right,
one?
and then you got to make another one.
Or one per
If
computer,
you're
one per
sharing,
pad?
one per iPad.
Okay.
So if you're sharing iPads and you've got multiple classes doing it, it's not going to work really well.
Okay.
If you've got enough where each kid can have their own, or you kind of stagger it out, you can get away with it. But for me, I mean, it's worth the $4.99. Green Screen by Do Inc. One of the best, probably the best $2.99 you'll ever spend. It's the simplest, most easiest, most high quality green screen app I've seen. We could just do a whole session just playing with that. And if you want to, I've got it on my iPad. We can play with it afterwards. But I have a tutorial that shows how to use this. You put the kid in front of a colored background, usually green. Make sure they're not wearing the same color unless you want to have a hole in them somewhere. Which can be used for creative purposes.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
You kind of get the Harry Potter cloak or something like that. And then they can put whatever background they want behind them. It exports it as a video to the camera roll. Fantastic app. Educreations is a kind of a whiteboard app that lets you talk and record your whiteboard, but you can bring in pictures and record stories that way as well. Mac Tools, iMovie, Keynote is actually really powerful too. As far as bringing in images, animating them, moving these around, you can have a lot of fun with animations on Keynote. Audacity is one of my favorite apps. I even like it better than GarageBand for recording. You can install it on Mac. It works with Windows and Linux too. But just to create audio stories, radio dramas, podcasts, get your sound effects going, let people's imagination go. Really powerful. Windows tool. Microsoft Photo Story 3 has not been updated since 2006. I am told it still works in Windows 10, but it lets you bring in images, add your voice. It's very step-by-step. It looks old, but it does output video, and you can tell some great stories with it. You even do some transitions and zooms and pans. Windows Movie Maker, another fairly simple one. I know that Windows has that great little, the Surface Pro. If they had just a killer video app, that would be such an awesome device, because it's got, it has a camera. It's like an iPad, but it's a full-blown computer. But all they give you is Windows Movie Maker, which looks like something from 1998. But it can get better.
It was beautiful in 1998.
It was beautiful in
It
1998.
was.
It just needs to be a little bit, make something a little bit simpler, a little bit more intuitive. You can do some fun stuff with it. But you can still use that. Web tools, Little Bird Tales was one of my solutions for Chromebooks. It lets kids add pictures, add images, add words, add their voice. It's kind of like an online version of Book Creator. There's a free version that lets teachers create a class, or you can pay for a subscription. MoveNote's another one that lets you bring in pictures. Storybird, you have to use their pictures to tell your story, and it doesn't add sound, but it just lets you create books using using their images, and they've got some pretty amazing stock images in there for use. Going back to the polar bear story, would you like to see what I came up with?
Yeah.
Okay, this is with the images and things. Don't yell at me. This doesn't include the credits with the citations, but I did do them.
Polar bear, what do you smell? I smell a seal that will be my next meal.
Second picture,
Uh-oh, I gotta get out of here.
Audacity.
Polar bear, where are you going?
You have Discovery Ed, you can download clips and use them in
I
the videos
think
as
I
well.
might take a little swim before dinner. Little seal, where are you going?
Seriously? I'm just trying to swim away from that polar bear. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Hey, come back here, little fella. That was good. Looks like it's a bad day to be a seal.
I know, I broke the no death rule. It's the animal kingdom, circle of life. No blood. I think we got away with it.
All right.
Yeah. Crafting a good story. Some tools if you want to kind of get into a little bit more in depth. I really like to have kids focus on the writing, but you've got to start with questions. We talked about getting that problem. Okay, who's the main character? Significant lights event. What happened? What's their problem? Did they have a plan? Did it work? What's the result? If you have these questions ahead of time, when you go online to do your internet research, all right, you want to know your questions ahead of time, because that's when you know you're done. When I've answered all those questions, I have all the information to start writing my story. Otherwise, you're sending kids on the internet for information, more information, more information. How do you know when you're done? When you've answered all your questions. And included in the resources, I've got some links to different graphic organizers that kids can use for organizing their stories, breaking it into events, answering the who, what, where, why, when, how. This is one that you can download. Here's another one: setting, characters, problem, events, resolution. Another one with several different events. But, and then, here's, you were supposed to be here at the beginning of my presentation, Dr. John. But once again, brain rules, vision trumps all of their senses.
Hi, I'm Hinkle, the sea hare, and this is a story of adventure, danger, and excitement.
This is a fifth
It all
grader
started when I needed
who just
to
used
visit
their
my
own drawings in the
birthday
paper slide video.
The other
They were
side.
holding it and not
But
using
there
the
was one
cardboard
problem.
box.
She was in the tide post, and I was in the ocean, and I was pretty slow. But my luck had just changed 3 seconds later. I got swooped up by the waves and into one of the tide posts, which luckily was her home. So then, I stood there, face to face with Bob, the porcelain crab, my enemy. I quickly squirted out purple liquid to hide my movements. As I moved on, I met Hank, the hermit crab, who explains his rather long and boring story. I stopped. I thought maybe I could just rest a bit, but I was wrong. About 1 minute later, a human picked me up, and I tried struggling, but it obviously did not work. The human, after a number of minutes, finally put me down. I kept going to avoid any more of that. I finally reached Hannah's house. 3 years later, we were a nice, big, happy family. As you can see, visiting a friend is much harder than it looks.
The project for that was they had to learn about a tide pool animal and put that tide pool animal in a story. And the animal could only act within its natural abilities. So they had to highlight, in fact you saw, doing the squirting the ink and showing the different habitat of where it lives. So they had to tell a story, but in that story they had to work in the content to prove that they knew about the animal's habits and abilities. So the talking part, we stretch on, but it works. Okay. And here's where storytelling gets really powerful. It's once you've got that video, because we have the internet, because we've got online resources, we can publish and share it. Why would you want to do this? I quote my friend Rushton Hurley. He says, when students' work is seen by the world, they want it to be good. When it's only seen by the teacher, it just has to be good enough. Authentic audience means everything. Even if they're just sharing with their classmates, that's good. Sharing with the world, better. And ways for doing that, you want to make sure you export your story as a video. And I always sort of relate this to printing. When you have a document in a word processor, you're kind of in that document edit mode. When you go to export as video, it's like printing that project as something that can be shared. That video, it's sort of stuck in a format, but it's in a format that can be shared and played and uploaded and used all around. Just like if I want to go back and change it, I have to go back to my work format, to my editor, and make changes. And then I export it again with the changes. But make sure you export as a video format. MP4 is one of my favorites. It seems to be the fairly universal video format. Other formats are the MOV, the Move for QuickTime and Macs. Windows Media, one of the disadvantages of movie, does Movie Maker, I think, only save as Windows Media? I think it does. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier exporting from Book Creator as EPUB as well. If you do that, you can also help them.
That's fairly generic as well, yeah.
You can help them publish to something like Amazon as well, which I've done with a few of my students.
Oh, you have? Oh, fantastic. And once again, shared with the world.
Exactly.
Did they ever check it back and see how many people have viewed it? It's kind of cool.
Very
or kind
cool.
of disappointing. It can be both. Yeah.
Kind of both.
But lots of options for sharing. If they have, at Concordia, our kids have WordPress blogs. They can share their stuff on their own WordPress blog. If you're using something like Edmodo, if you're using, they can even submit their work to Google Classroom, put it in their Google Drive. If you upload a video to Google Drive, you can share it and share it out with a link without even having to get it on YouTube. Share it among your school community. If you've got Google Apps Red, and it plays in just a YouTube player. It's fantastic. We have our middle schoolers, when they create their colonial reports, they stand in front of the green screen and talk about their colonial character. They take that, they upload it to their Google Drive, share it with their teacher. That's how they turn it in. And the world can respond to that. Finally, the process is, and working with media and working with videos is a making process. You're going through the process of making. And part of the maker project or maker process is evaluate, reflect, assess. What did you do? Worked right. What would you do better next time? And on the resources, I've got some links to effective feedback. But here are questions you can ask students. What was easy? What was difficult? What would you do next time? Also, my friend Rushton, you saw his picture there, he's the one that had the quote. He has a website called Next Vista for Learning. and it's a nonprofit, and he hosts student video projects, and he has contests. And it's fantastic because what he does is says, I want you to make a 90-second video on students showing service. And he has all the parameters. He says, and they'll check and make sure if they're using music and they haven't got permission for it, or they haven't listed it that it's their original, he'll call them out and say, hey, you might want to fix this before we do it. But they have contests, and then that stuff is shared globally to a global audience. But he's great about, we've had a couple students submit some stuff to him, and it's like, hey, he emails back, and he always emails the teacher as well. It's like, you might want to add this in your credits. Or I noticed you've got some images, are those your images? Did you get those from somewhere? Because they're not in your citations. Before we can publish this, he gives them. And I could say that till I'm blue in the face, but when it's coming from someone who they're submitting to in a contest, somehow it carries a little bit more weight. I don't know why. But if you've got these questions for reflection, and you want to have a rubric, you've got your subject communication skills, all the different writing skills, research skills, communication skills, and you create a rubric. This is really helpful to have ahead of time. So you see, what are you looking for? What do they need to do? And it helps you not be fooled by slick presentations that are weak on content. You get some kids that are pretty skilled visually, but if you're trying to do this for a history report or for a science report, and they've got a really slick video, but the experiment or the scientific process is really weak, here's where you call them on. Celebrate the creative process, ding them on the content, and give them a chance to work on it and redo it and go through that. And when you're telling stories, I love this. This is from Ira Glass. And how am I doing on time? Time to start. 1 minute? Yeah. Ooh, okay. Watch this. It's a great link. This is another thing for telling stories. I love this. I told you I'd come back to some of those Library of Congress ones. This is a great activity for kids you can do really quickly. It's called 6-word stories. Show them an image. Here's that image I pulled off of Library of Congress. That's the citation. Tell me what's happening in that in 6 words. You really have to be selective when you only get 6 words. Here's a suggestion. All right. Or if you're talking about Pompeii. I have a sixth sense of humor. I'm sorry.
I feel like there's some death there.
There might be. It was historic death. It's historic death. Just a couple other ones. If you ever want to explore these links, you can use maps for storytelling. Google Lit Trips. Jerome Berg's started this years ago, but you can actually tell a story with map points. Google Docs Story Builder. You can actually use text and record these little videos of text telling a story. Fun to play with, like I said. I wish I had more time. I could do this all day. Links, bonus scenes, bonus features. Here's the link to all the stuff that you need. Didn't get to the ducks, but one of my exercises when I teach kids storytelling is I give them a duck and I say, give your duck a problem. All right? Now get with a partner, take 5 pictures telling a story of how your duck solves their problem. And then they take that. And usually anything you've got, you can take pictures. But it's a good exercise for getting them into the idea of storytelling. And I've had a bunch of workshops where we go around the room and that's squeaking.
It's a problem.
There's the feedback.
There's your problem. It's a squeak, yeah.
Yeah, so some will squeak, but they tell some great stories with their ducks. And plus it's fun to play duck. You ever play duck now? Duck.
So this is also on the page 9 QR code of different resources that different people have given.
Yeah.
He had already sent me the link, and that's
if I
on that
forget,
page as well.
if I forget something, I can add it because it's a Google Doc.
Yeah.
I can change it and I can update it.
That's excellent.
So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Go ahead and make stories. It's fun. Questions?
Oh, so many. How do you tie this into the curriculum? Are you working with the teachers to do this?
That's why you have a rubric. Let me see if I have it. I might have a science one.
Because, this is the opera of visual technology. videos.
Yeah.
And they take time.
Well, they take, not necessarily. I mean, I'm a fan of projects that have a limited scope.
Yeah.
You set some parameters and you say, okay, you need to have something done in 30 minutes. It's not always going to be, it's not going to be so, you know, super excellent product, but for me, it's the process that they go through.
Where do you, for your rubric creation and or?
Rubistar is a great one to go with. Yeah, I think I might even have a link in there.
Yeah.
Even just, you know, get some project requirements, make sure your project, I was involved with the California Student Media Festival, which is our state media festival, and I helped develop the rubric that we judge those for. And all the videos that are submitted from schools across the state, we have different categories. We have best high school math video, best elementary history video. So the submission from, they actually have to list which content standards this video is demonstrating. Sometimes it's a little loose on the interpretation, but it has to be linked to some sort of standard in content. And the media, I love using media to have kids show what they know. Because this is better evidence than I would get on a test.
What age level do you work with?
I'm an elementary and middle school tech coach. So my job is to take some of this and help the teachers work it into their curriculum. We do it in science. They get an iPad, they take pictures of their science experiments. Remember you used to have to like look through the microscope or draw out your assignment? You've got a camera. Take that in, and put arrows on it, point out what happens. Tell me that, I think we started at the beginning a little bit, I don't know if you all heard this, but Mythbusters is storytelling for science. You start with a problem, you come up with a plan to find the solution, and your climax is the experiment a success or a fail. Have kids tell the story of their science experiment. What did you learn? You know, there's the process right there. And I can see as they go through their process, were they following the scientific process or not. History is full of great stories.
Educations as well for math is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, you could develop an entire curriculum based on storytelling.
Oh yeah. Well, and math, if you've ever looked at Dan Meyer's 3-act math lessons, it is math as storytelling.
Storytelling.
Story problems. Yeah, if you just, I didn't put that in the resources, but Dan Meyer's 3-act math stuff, he's actually working with Desmos.
Oh.
And if if you're familiar with Desmos, right?
Oh, gosh,
Yeah.
yes.
Teacher.desmos.com.
I just, compared to
Yeah.
spending $150
Yeah.
on a calculator that does half the
Desmos
job
is
of
not much
Desmos.
Yeah, teacher.desmos.com,
Absolutely.
you can create a class and get a class code that your kids can join. And you can
Works on
push out
any
different
device, device
activities.
agnostic.
One of my favorites is this one he's
So-
got, it's called Central Park.
And
And
teacher resources
it's
are.
an empty spot, and you've got 3 lines. And you have to eyeball the 3 lines to make it even so the cars can pull in and park. But then, as you go through, it's like, okay, if the spot is this wide, develop a formula for coming up with something. Because you can eyeball and eyeball and eyeball, but it works the kids through the process of teaching them, well, if I have a mathematical formula, I can get it right every time. I don't have to keep trying to eyeball. It teaches them that it's more efficient. There's another great one too, where you talk about it's a taco cart, and you're on the beach, and taco cart's over here, you're here. Is it faster to walk slowly at this pace across the sand, or walk slowly across the sand to the sidewalk where you can speed up and walk faster on the sidewalk to get to the tacos? And it's cool, just # because tacos.